A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. We begin in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, and we pray for the peace and blessings of Allah Azza wa Jal upon our noble Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, his household, his companions, and all those who have been struggling on this noble path till the day of judgment. My dear respected audience, as we are moving close to 1/3 end of Ramadan, we want to fast track our lectures and slowly begin to look at what to do in terms of the effective management of our willpower. The negative situations that we need to mask our willpower, or we need to use the I won't power aspect of the willpower in order to restrain ourselves, and positive situations that we need to actually fuel our I want power or I will power in order to motivate ourselves, and in general, how to regulate our wills. Inshallah, in this episode and the other episode, we want to critically have a look at the Sunnah and the Quran, those situations that can guide us to know how to manage our willpower very well. We will be mentioning them one by one so that we can get ourselves guided and you, our audience, also guided. In terms of dealing with negative things within our environment, it could be our negative habits or negative triggers. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, even in wars, the best strategy he used was to prevent. Number one, to prevent an encounter even with a negative situation. That's number one. If it is even war, to ensure that he prevents the war. Now, we see that it is not only in a war or in difficult situation. Even in handling spiritual issues, you look at the psychology that is being displayed in the Quran, it is the same thing. For us to handle negative emotions within us or negative internal commands within us, Allah Azza wa Jal would want us to first of all control our environment, take good control of our environment, and ensure that whatever fields that are within the environment, we remove them. And if we cannot remove them, then we will remove ourselves and get into a positive environment. That is number one. Number two, even beyond the environment, if the triggers have entered into the environment, how to ensure that we block them so that we manage them squarely at the channel of perceptions stage, our sense organ, the encounter between those negative triggers that is triggering us to do something that is bad or triggering us to do something that is good. To manage those particular triggers, if we can't avoid them, then we move on to the management of the sense organs or the channels of perception. That's how come in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal will tell us to lower our gazes, lower your eyes, so that there wouldn't be any encounter between you and the triggers. So therefore, we want to look at squarely the entire process of deciding to do something that is good, that is I will power, activating your I will power, or the entire process of restraining yourself from doing something that is bad, that is your I won't power. This entire process, these are the first steps or the major steps in willpower management. Those entire process, how do we manage it? Number one, the process actually starts with an environment. It is the environment that will house the triggers. The triggers, those situations or persons that will actually command you, or that will actually remind you, that will actually motivate you to do or not to do, will be found within a particular environment. So the environment is key. We will come to look at how Quran guides us in terms of management of the environment. After the environment, the triggers pass through the environment, and with our body, the first encounter they come to is actually our channels of perception. Either our eyes, the triggers will come across. The first encounter may be our eye, or it may be our ears, or it may be our bodies. So either the visual system, our eye, or the auditory system, our ears, or the kinesthetic system, our body. So when the triggers now come to the channels of perception, then we manage the channels of perception very well and refine these particular triggers, or we are unable to manage them, we are unable to refine them. They will now come to what we call filters, even before they get, in fact, they enter into the mind, but within the mind, they find what we call filters that we had discussed in our other episode. Filters, that is in neuro-linguistic program, but in the Quran, they find what we call veils, or they find what we call coverings that actually restructure the incoming trigger at the mental stage. So within the mind, you find several filters, like belief, like memories, like attitudes, and so forth and so on. So from the filters level, it will now go to the center of analysis. The brain is now going to explain that particular trigger. From the brain, it will now pass through, or from the mind, after giving the decision, it will pass through the soul before it gets inside the heart. Then the soul will now readjust the incoming trigger, decide how it is going to respond to the incoming trigger. Either it is going to take the negative way of responding, that is acquiring what we need, a negative reaction form or a positive reaction form. I mean, you have seen the food and it has passed through your channels of perception. Your eye saw it, then the olfactory system, your nose actually heard the scent of it, and then you heard somebody calling for the food. So your auditory system also comes in. So it now takes it to the mind. In between the minds are filters. Automatically you have a filter like belief, and that filter tells you, no, it is Ramadan time. So it puts a break to that particular trigger. It completely crashes that particular trigger over there and weakens the trigger by giving it a time of response. Inshallah, at iftar time, I will take this particular meal. So you are able to postpone the reaction time. Then from the brain has now resolved that this is the way it's going to. Then from the brain, it pushes it to the soul for the soul to decide now what to do with this particular. Then the soul, if it has no strong filters like also the brain, it will be difficult for this. For example, somebody who is not a Muslim, I mean, we say, well, if other people are fasting me, I mean, what has it got to do with me? I am not a Muslim. Do you understand? And then I can see this kusi is very nice, though they are selling it to Muslims in the Zongos for iftar. I am a this. And then the soul will now struggle to decide, should I take it or I shouldn't take it? The soul wants to take it immediately, because for the soul, instant gratification is just something so common thing. Immediately the soul wants to get, whether through halal way or illegal way, whether it's okay or it's not okay, the soul wants. That is how come Allah describes it, inna nafsa la ammaratun bisu. I mean, the soul constantly commands you to do something that is constantly commands you to find through shortcut way of satisfying itself. So the soul is now going to decide how. But if the person is a Muslim, the filters within the soul will now also that, no, wait till evening time, or if the person is not a Muslim, the filters within the soul may say, look, there are Muslims around here, it's Zongo, so please take your time. You can take it and go into the room to take it, or also wait till this. No, I won't wait, let me take it. So the soul will make a decision, actually, either to go right or left. But the tendency of the soul going to left is high. That is what the Quran tells us. In the nafsa la ammaratun bisu. It's very high, the tendency. And the tendency of going to right is minimal. If you give it training, if you give the soul training, and that is the essence of Ramadan. You are using the filters, the belief filters in the mind and also in the heart to mask the soul and tell it that no, though you want, I'll give it to you, but evening time. So that is when actually the production of Iraada, begins. You are able to control the soul and tell the soul, no, you will move to the right distance. It is not the instant benefit I want, but it's the future benefit I want. So wait, I will get it for you in the future. There are some of them that if you train the brain very well and you train your internal faculties very well, you can even convince your soul, look, this is a very nice lady, I like her, what and what, but then that is not my wife. I can't touch her. And the soul will say, oh no, it's impossible for you to get her again. Oh, today is that. Then you communicate with the soul again. Look, on the day of judgment in heaven, there are hurul ain, better than what? This one. So don't worry, very soon I'll be in heaven. Everything will be okay. So if you know how to actually communicate internally, we'll come to that one, like internal collaboration and internal meeting and communication, it helps you to manage some of these incoming what? Triggers. The brain is able to communicate with the decision to take a decision. Then finally, the brain and the soul will resolve that, look, I am not eating this thing. I am not doing this particular job except what iftar time. I am going to prolong it to this particular time. At that time, I will do what? The right thing. Then it is sent to what? The heart. Then the heart will now develop a desire. A desire or a feeling, either for or not for it. So in this case, the heart will develop the desire of not taking that particular food. So you realize that Ramadan is actually a process of helping you being able to control your internal faculties. It is left for you to include consciousness to be able to actually manage the communication between these particular faculties. First of all, become conscious of these particular communications and be part of the communication and try to control and manage the communication so that even after Ramadan, this particular competence of being able to manage your internal coordination between the faculties, you are able to transfer it to other situations outside Ramadan. That is how come I say that, look, in Ramadan, you are not only to embark on the physiological and physical fasting, embark on several fasting. Are there some bad deeds or some deeds that you think they are not the best for you? Like the time you spend on social media, the time you spend on your phone. As you fast for 12 or 13 hours, why not put a minimum of 1 hour fasting on your phone? Conduct what? Sahur. Fast for what? The 1 hour, conduct iftar. You start again. That is, you tell yourself, I am never going to touch this particular phone for 1 hour. So you do your intention. Have your sahur, go onto what? The phone, all the WhatsApps that you are supposed to answer, anything you are supposed, you do them quickly. That is your sahur, you put it down. Whether call, whether any message at all, I'm not going to touch it for 1 hour. For 1 hour. That is your fasting period. Somebody, for beginners, maybe 30 minutes. That's what your fasting period for that particular activity. You have developed that self-restraint for 12 hours for a particular activity, which is food, water, sex, bad comments, and so you have developed that particular desire. So now you are applying it on other behaviors that you want to refine, like behavior of phone using, behavior of internet, behavior of social media, and so forth and so on. These are just examples I am, giving. But you know the sort of bad habits that you have. We also know the sort of good habits that we want to actually have. We can also apply the fasting on that. You want to develop the habit of reading books or the habit of reading, Quran, give yourself time. Put everything aside. Make it short so that you make it applicable. In fact, make it smart. Be specific, and then ensure that it's measurable, and then ensure that you can actualize it, you can realize it, and ensure you put a time attached for it. Till our next episode, which we shall be looking at all these things, the stages that I have mentioned, we are now going to take them one by one. We take only the environment and discuss what the environment. What are the guidelines from the Quran and Sunnah concerning the environment that a believer should find himself in? So environment as a topic, that will be our next episode. Till then, we say wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.